So we go to that very key conversation, the chairman's conversation hosted by the chairman of the Shilumana Group, Mr. Given Mkari. And one of the issues that was raised during that particular conversation was those among us in the country who say they will not report corruption or they will not vote because nothing will change. And Mr. Adrian Gore there saying that, we should be motivated by loss. Most people are motivated by loss. We must also remember that ours is a very beautiful country, and that should make us less tolerant of corruption, saying that we must also look at the potential of our economy, which in actual fact is bigger than that of the Ukraine in terms of size. Let's take you back.
So, AJ, if you could remind us about things that, in your view, are working in this country that we have or are taking for granted, that despite and in spite of the challenges, you go, South Africa, the number one about yourself. What are the things that we should never forget about this place?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I think you shouldn't forget, is that it's a great country. I say that not lightly, because I think one of the most, I hope I keep sounding very technical, one of the most powerful things that human beings are motivated by is potential loss, right? Not potential gain. When you know you've got something to lose, it motivates you. And when you think about a country with its potential, right, you suddenly think we've got a lot to lose. We can't tolerate some of the things that we see. When you think there's nothing to lose and there's nothing here and it's all downhill, that's a dangerous emotion. So the first thing I have to tell you, just bear in mind, this is a big country with a big economy, with wonderful people. Before you get caught in the corruption and the crime and that stuff, which is real and problematic. But I'm saying, once you kind of take a view that there's a lot to lose, there's something special, then your attitude about those other things is less tolerant, because, you're screwing up our great country, right? Just remember that. Rather than, things are, what the issues are. And I think I always quote some of this data, the Joburg Cape Town flight route is the I think in the top 15 or 20 busiest in the world.
Joburg to Cape Town.
Joburg to Cape Town is, I think, the 15th busiest route in the world. 80% of Africa's long-term assets, pension assets, are in South Africa. We talk about the Ukraine and when the war happened in Russia, when the regional war started, about the scale of the country and its effect on the world and agriculture. That Gauteng's economy is almost the size of the Ukraine. People don't believe that. So I'm giving you some data. I'm not minimizing. I'm saying that I think we do better in leadership if we give people a sense of what we've got to lose.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? 14 minutes after 4. Just to expand on this particular issue, we are joined by Musa Mdunge, who is a political analyst. Musa, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Super duper, my brother. We haven't spoken in a while, man. Good to talk to you again.
Same here, and good afternoon to your listeners as well.
Beautiful stuff. South Africa, you've been abroad for the longest of time. When you come back home, what is it really that you pick up as a difference in terms of where we lack from a leadership point of view, starting at the leadership level?
Oh man, you are starting me. I could go on for days and write another thesis on this topic, really. Having come back, it amazes me, honestly, when I think about the level of just the morale in the country seems to be so low. And I was emceeing a wedding the other weekend, and I then got involved in a debate with some of my friends' uncles. And it was interesting. The debate we were having was apartheid actually better than post-1994 democracy? And it's scary when you hear so many people looking towards those days and even wanting those days. And it tells you of a leadership that has failed in its leadership to inspire a people to believe that as a people, and hear me out particularly, as black people, we can lead. And I think that is the crisis of this moment, is that it makes us think that Europeans were our saviors. And that's the danger here, really, for me. And you see it in the way the country seems to just be falling apart. And the only thing seeming to keep Johannesburg specifically up is the G20. How amazing.
How amazing indeed. What about us, South Africans? We seem to be investing most of our expectations on the same politicians that we complain about every day. We hardly ever think about becoming activists ourselves and contributing to the problems that we are seeing. I had a call with a chap from Skukuni who was talking about schools that are closing down and they don't even have computers. And I was even saying most of us, including myself, we don't go back to give back to our schools and make the little contribution that we can make. We no longer have a culture of saying, let's get together, give back to our communities, give back to our schools. We think that the mentality of giving back is only confined to business people who are successful.
Certainly, we need to return to a point of, what one of my professors, Prof. Spamandla Zondi, called active citizenry.
Yeah.
It's the first question, in fact, he asked us in our honors class 10 years ago. And we were so dumbfounded by why would he be asking us this question as honors students? But I think he wanted us already then to think carefully about what is your contribution to building this republic called the Republic of South Africa? It's not just the job of the leaders on top, but it is for all of us to be conscious of that. And that is why when Adrian Gore calls on us all to have this sort of constructive engagement again and activism again, right? He's calling us not to move aimlessly and purposelessly, but to think carefully about the South Africa that we envision. And I think not enough work has been done on that. What does South Africa post-1994 2.0 look like? And that's what potentially the dialogue, the national dialogue, should have addressed those questions. It should have been a time that brings all South Africans to be conscious about what is your individual contribution. And it is scary when you see kids loitering around Ekasi, and nobody's asking them, why are you not at school? You'll be amazed, Thabiso. The other day, I and my cousin had to stop a fight between two 15-year-old girls who are stabbing each other, Ekasi. That is the level of decay this country has fallen to. When you can see two 15-year-olds stabbing each other and nobody having the audacity to say, this is wrong, it tells you that the tone that has been set by the top is a very sour tone.
Absolutely. But to what extent do we also look at ourselves in the mirror instead of pointing out at an overgrown grass in our local clinic, at a fence that has been cut open by some people instead of doing something about it? To what extent are we those active citizens ourselves?
To be honest with you, we deserve to take an L, as the kids would say. We deserve to take an L on this matter, because if we were doing the job of thinking about that question about active citizenry, what are we doing in terms of schools, in the clinics, our own children? Are we raising kids who are going to be responsible, who understand what this project South Africa is, and that when we are long gone, we'll be able to sustain it? That is the hard question that we all have got to answer in this day and age. It cannot just be the politicians who resolve our issues. Consider the fact that the president currently is the same man whom media was writing about in the 90s as a potential president then. The fact that the same men are still dominating our politics, Thabo Mbeki, Jacob Zuma, Cyril Ramaphosa, who are part of that 1994 squad fighting it out for the future of ANC, is for me a problem. And it's telling us that we've got to move beyond the same leaders. Even the Democratic Alliance, let me not just crap on the ANC here. Even the Democratic Alliance, the fact that they're feeding us Helen Ziller as an option for mayor, where in New York right now, Thabiso, a 34-year-old has just been elected as the mayor of the richest city in the world. Come on, man. Something's got to give.
Let's talk about those that are despondent. People who say, but what's the point of voting, because very little is going to change? What is the point of reporting corruption, because nothing will happen to the people that I'm reporting to? In fact, I'll end up being victimized. that mentality permeates, and it's something that also Adrian Gore was reflecting on when asked by Given Mkari, our chairman.
Well, to them, I would say, let us go at it again. Let us keep trying, because what is the alternative? I think it's important here that we present to the people what would be the alternative, because I keep hearing people raising this whole issue of, should we not have a military dictatorship, and should we not be led by a military dictator? Well, yes, I see the example they're giving in Traore, but Traore is not the only military dictatorship that exists. Ask the Pakistani people in Pakistan, how does living under a military dictatorship all these years that has really dominated the politics they've done for that country? Pakistan is 10 times more poor than India, whom it got independence with at the same time. That's telling you something. So before we start, glorifying military dictatorships, we need to ask ourselves as South Africans, what do we then lose if the issue of agency is lost?
Yeah.
And if we're willing to put that in the hand of a dictator, yes, that dictator may be good there and then, but everybody dies at some point. Everybody leaves the stage. What follows after? And that's the question South Africans have got to ask themselves. And that is why fighting for strong institutions is very important. Fighting for constitutionality is very important. Checks and balances is very important. The things that will outlast the very politicians you are complaining about, that is the key.
Absolutely, and I suppose, I mean, just as a last issue out of the conversation with Mr. Adrian Gore, I mean, upon reflection, I also thought to myself, perhaps it also starts with us in a manner that speaks to us, also putting shoulders to the wheel. I mean, yesterday I was having a we had two callers that called in who said they were amazed at how much Namibians love themselves and their country, saying most of the country is clean. And you drive around townships, you drive around CBDs in this country. It is embarrassing how we are so adept to littering in this country. Motorists rolling down their windows on the freeway and throwing out a packet of fast food, whatever it is that they were eating. I mean, look at in the Val, right? Emfuleni, one of the most damaged municipality, right? They come up with a beautiful project of putting up mast lights and building up a road and whatever the case may be, somewhere in the Val there. Somebody calls and says that beautiful project is being vandalized by the same people who live in that particular area. Then it tells you that self-love is also an issue there. Not lack of love for ourselves and our country is a hurdle that we need to go over.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And I think it begins, if you think about this thing of what does it mean to be a South African, right? The fact of the matter is that our ancestors, you and I, were not at the table in 1910 when the project of the Union of South Africa was being discussed. That's a fact. So what does this thing called being a South African mean? It is the reason why people will maybe draw closer to their tribal identities, right, to their familiar identities than a national identity. And it's something as South Africans we've got to interrogate. And unfortunately here, political leadership still remains, unfortunately, so important. Right? But there is a role for all of us as South Africans, even those in academia, in journalism, everywhere, to have this discussion, to force this discussion. In fact, I wish a journalist could just ask the president, Mr. President, what does it mean to be South African, and what value proposition does being South African bring to the table? If our president cannot answer that question, we've got a problem.
Let's leave it at that, my brother. Always a pleasure, and thank you so much for making time. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure, sir.
Thanks a lot. Musa Mdunge there is a political analyst.